David, thank you. Three former students are suing the Oconto Falls School Board, claiming they were sexually groomed and abused by teachers and coaches at the high school. Taylor Ziebel has details and tells us why this federal lawsuit was filed today.
The three plaintiffs, Grace Williams, Amanda Watska, and Brooke LeCount, met through social media last year and shared their stories with each other while dealing with emotional repercussions. That's when they realized the grooming, sexual abuse, and misconduct they allegedly endured at Oconto Falls High School may reflect criminal conduct and constitutional violations.
The overall picture here is that this was a school that had unwritten policies, customs, and practices that enabled sex abuse and grooming and sexualized conduct towards students to flourish.
The lawsuit lists at least 14 alleged victims and accuses 9 teachers and staff members of inappropriate behavior. The reports date all the way back to 2005.
20 years, folks, that children sat in these classrooms, trusted the adults around them, and were failed by every single person in a position to protect them while at that school.
One of the staff members mentioned is former volleyball coach Bryn Larson. She was convicted of sexually assaulting a child and served prison time. Gail Gander, an English arts teacher at the high school, was arrested in December for allegations of misconduct. The district shared a statement with Action 2 News that reads in part, quote, "The district staff of excellent professional educators strive every day to deliver a great educational experience for all students. This is not diminished by the inexcusable actions of these identified former employees." They go on later to say the district remains confident, however, that will continue to act promptly to any allegations of misconduct, end quote. Attorneys say the goal of the lawsuit is to create new policies to prevent this from happening to anyone else.
We want to focus on the institutional problem in this case because it's the institution that enabled this. We had considered naming individuals, and at this time we want to keep the core laser focus on fixing the institution's problems.
I'm Taylor Ziebel for Action 2 News.